Batman. He needs no introduction. For many, he's the greatest superhero. Considering the success of his movies, shows, and even games, I understand why. But what about his comics? I rarely read Batman comics, but I also think most people's impression of a superhero isn't based off their comics. Maybe I'm out of touch, but I mean, how many Iron Man fans have truly read his comics and not just watched his movies? Hello, this is Sunman, and in today's video I'll give my thoughts on some Batman comics. This won't be a one-off video, but a series where I read comics of well-known characters and give my thoughts. The purpose of the series is for me to open up to comic books. For the first episode, I'm simply going to a bookstore and pick up a comic that seems interesting, even if that comic needs context from previous chapters without any prior online research. Now listen, if I find the story or some characters intriguing, I will look them up online and try and search it near me. It could be complicated since my local area is very limited concerning comics. You might say, why pick up a random comic book without knowing the context? Marvel and DC have a long history with countless writers, spin-offs and reboots. They simply cannot expect people to know the whole context of their stories. The creators sometimes have this in mind. For example, I have here at home a massive comic book with several chapters putting together all the necessary tomes together into one. It's The Death of Superman, The Reign of Superman. Here's the order you would have to read if you didn't have something recapping it. Tome 1 Action Comic Issue 687. Tome 2 Superman Man of Steel Issue 22. Tome 3 Superman Issue 78. Tome 4 Adventures of Superman Issue 501, etc. and etc. I'm sorry, but what? You're telling me if I didn't have that book, I would have to go on a wild goose chase searching for them in the correct order? I don't know about you, but usually when I read something, it's not that confusing. I start with chapter 1 and continue. Luckily, the stories I will be reading start with volume 1 issue 1 or don't need heavy context from other works for me to understand it. The stories I will be reading are Batman One Dark Knight by Jock, Batman Damned by Brian Azzarello, Lee Bermejo, and Batman Failsafe Volume 1 by Chip Zdarsky, Jorge Jimenez and Tommy Toroy. Sorry if I butchered their names. Starting off with Batman Failsafe. The premise of that story is a bit weird. In his younger days, Batman's backup personality created a robot designated to kill him if he ever murders somebody. Years later, the Penguin, in his supposedly last moments, managed to frame Batman for his so-called death, branding him as a killer. This leads to Failsafe, a robot, being activated and hunting him down. Batman can't take it down even with the help of the Bat Family and some members of the Justice League. It ends with Failsafe evaporating Batman and completing his mission. Supposedly. This comic showed me how little I actually know about Batman. In this issue alone, I learned that Alfred died, Bruce lost a big portion of his fortune and is mainly acting as Batman, although I think it's meant to be temporarily, but still. Doesn't live in his mansion anymore but somewhere in the city, and he planned a marriage with Catwoman which didn't go through. I learned all of this in the first few pages. Now to the story. While I do think the idea of Batman being framed by the Penguin is interesting, I don't like Failsafe. He's just an unbeatable machine with no signs of weakness, a bit too bland for my liking. I do like the exchange between Bruce and his backup personality, Zur-En-Arrh. We see Zur-En-Arrh as the purest form of the Batman concept, solely focused on wiping out criminality. Yes, he has the same mission as Bruce, at least on the surface, but unlike Bruce, he has no empathy. For example, he sees Robin as a soldier, whilst Bruce considers him as his son. For me, Batman, Bruce's version, is a hero, and not just a vigilante who beats up criminals. Yes, he wants to wipe out criminality. Yes, he is brutal when fighting, but he is still a friend, a father, a son. Those relationships are important. He would rather sacrifice himself than others. These traits are essential for him to be a hero, which are alien to Zur-En-Arrh. In the future, I would like more interactions between these two and less with Failsafe. I appreciate that this story isn't limiting itself to just Batman as a superhero. Batman lives in an interactive world with other superheroes and villains. It's refreshing to see other characters be part of the story, even if they play a marginal role. It makes the story more exciting and lively. For example, we see Superman step in. Although he loses against Failsafe, his appearance is a testament to their friendship. He trusts Batman but knows when to intervene. We also see Aquaman harboring Batman for safety. Aquaman condemns Batman for creating Failsafe but still respects him. Instead of complaining, he forces Batman to do something about it. The different superheroes weigh in on Batman's actions differently, although they support him. There is more, but the video would be too long if I mentioned every character. We also get a side story with Catwoman. She is hired to search for the children of the Penguin so that they can be present when the will is announced. She fails, and on the day the will is read out, only one kid will receive his part. Turns out, Catwoman recognizes him as somebody who killed one of his brothers. She suspects that he may have even killed all of his other siblings, setting up a storyline for Catwoman. She also figures out that the Penguin staged his death and retired somewhere else. We finally get to know the Zur-En-Arrh origin. Batman was attacked by a scientist at a psychic level. As a precaution, he tried to create a backup personality in case he loses control. He doesn't have time to finish the backup as he has to stop the Joker from his misdeeds. Zur-En-Arrh, his incomplete backup, takes over, brutalizes Joker, almost killing him while laughing creepily. At the last second, Bruce manages to retake control. Zur-En-Arrh in his unfinished form seems to enjoy brutality towards criminals, showing that the backup might be a dangerous idea. Overall, I would give it a 7 out of 10. I think it has potential with many interesting ideas, coupled with a lot of characters, giving it a breath of fresh air. My sole issue is that Failsafe is too boring. That's it. The two highlights for me were when Bruce stood up to Zur-En-Arrh and clarified that Robin isn't a soldier but his son, and when Superman intervened. Next up, we have Batman Damned. This is an alternative version of the Caped Crusader. We have a detective story where Batman has to figure out what happened to the Joker with the help of the magician Constantine. During his investigation, he's confronted by supernatural elements with a shocking twist at the end. Before giving my thoughts and entering spoiler territory, I want to clarify something. I read this book in a language I usually don't read, and the story itself plays a lot between the lines of reality, fiction and supernatural, making it vague. It might be the case that I misunderstood parts of that story. With that out of the way, let's jump in. In this story, we get flashback scenes of his childhood, which isn't as rosy as you'd expect. His dad is cheating on his mom, which he figures out. They constantly fight, no matter if Bruce is present or not. This constant fighting has a negative effect on him. There's a scene where after they fought, his father runs away even though he planned on playing with Bruce, leaving him sad and angry. Out of fury, he pulls out his toy gun and aims it at his mother, blaming her. For me, it not only showcases how emotionally distraught Bruce is, but also how much permanent damage they did to his psyche. It's also in that scene where we get Batman's no gun rule, promising to his mom to never aim a gun again. During those times, he's being plagued by a demonic girl, but more on that later. This take on Bruce's childhood is unique, interesting, and also kind of sad. Now in the present time, Batman is heavily wounded and is saved by Constantine. He learns on TV that Joker has died, but he doesn't believe the news, so he investigates with the help of Constantine. This was kind of weird to me, since the news showed the Joker's corpse. Is that not enough evidence? I guess not for the Batman. On his journey, he faces many abnormalities, one of them being a homeless man who constantly accuses Batman of being guilty of a crime that Batman doesn't know of. This was intriguing because this old man was in a house lit on fire while fighting Batman. He should not have the physique to do those things, proving to me this wasn't some homeless man, but something more. At the end, we get the big reveal on what happened to the Joker. It turns out, it's not the Joker who died, it's Batman himself. All along we have been following Batman's spirit. Constantine kept Batman's spirit away from the war to keep him stable, while Batman himself tries to figure out what truly happened. Finally, he remembers. Batman and Joker fought on a bridge. During that fight, Joker didn't just harm him, but landed a fatal wound before falling from the bridge. This was never a simple detective story, but a story where Batman has to fight his demons to regain his memories and to atone for his sin. The old man I previously mentioned, he isn't just some dude, but someone who judges Batman's soul and uncovers his sin. Batman's sin is that he refused to help Joker even though he could have. This story, for me while unique and interesting, was a bit too vague. You constantly ask yourself if it's real or not. For example, this ghost girl at first seems to be a real ghost, but with hindsight we know that Bruce didn't really investigate Joker's murder, but confronted his own personal hell. It might be the case that this girl isn't a ghost, but an entity created by Bruce's subconscious to explain his childhood behavior and pin the blame on her. We don't know. The art style also stands out. I think it's called Gothic, but I'm not sure. Overall, I would give it a 6 out of 10. The investigation and twist at the end was interesting, but it is confusing to read and I didn't want to follow a dead Batman. Then again, this adds more to the story's uniqueness. Maybe in the future when I have read more Batman stories, it would stick out more and age like fine wine. But for now, it's a 6 out of 10 for me. Finally, we have Batman One Dark Knight. Gotham plans on transferring EMP, a superpowered criminal from Arkham Asylum, to Blackgate Prison, but everything goes wrong, forcing Batman to step in and finish the transfer. Gotham here is a lawless city. I know it's not paradise, but my god, there were gang members on every street shooting at them, sometimes with RPGs. Even Batman was shocked at this chaos. EMP's abilities, as its acronym implies, are tied to electricity. For example, he eats up energy sources, creating blackouts. During his transfer, gang members bombed the truck he was in, trying to catch him. Out of fear, he ran away, absorbed some energy and accidentally created a blackout. While everybody wants something from him, Batman is the only one trying to save him and put him to prison. Reading the story, it's clear that EMP isn't just some criminal, but a person who has done massive damage in the past and who needs help. He was part of a gang and 5 years ago he accidentally created a massive explosion causing the death of countless family members, one of them being his girlfriend. You feel for him because he has to live with the fact that he destroyed countless of lives. His son is an orphan because of him. Yes, he was a gang member, and yes, he was a drug user, but that didn't make him a monster, just a person who fell and didn't manage to get back up. The way he talks and acts shows how mentally unstable he is. He can barely formulate a sentence, but when he talks, he's either afraid, ashamed, or regretful. Tell me, does this sound like a villain to you? Batman here was fantastic. He beat up criminals while carrying EMP, who unconsciously absorbed electricity from his mind. Weakened and with minimal resources, he fights and perseveres. At one point, he fights Killer Croc and his worshippers. He's outnumbered and outmatched, but still won. All of this is cool and badass, but that's not all of it. We see Batman isn't just a brute, but a hero. His goal isn't to put EMP behind bars because he's a criminal, he's doing it because he wants to help him. At another instance, EMP is desperate and reveals his sense of guilt. Batman's response isn't to shame him or to ignore him, but to humanize him. He doesn't ignore his wrongdoings, but he clarifies that he needs to go to Blackgate so that there is a chance for him. In my eyes, he gave him hope, something EMP desperately needed. That's the mark of a true hero. We are also introduced to Vasquez, the head of the prison bureau of Gotham City. She's the one who planned and organized EMP's transfer in spite of Gordon's objection. She is ironclad on punishing criminals. She doesn't show much compassion towards rehabilitation of criminals, thinking it's too soft. Looking at her, you would think that while she's definitely severe, she seems to be honest. Lo and behold, we discover that she too is corrupt, being in touch with gangs. You might ask yourself, why? Is it because of money? No. Because of status? No. Power? Not really. She wants revenge. EMP wiped out her whole family 5 years ago. Since then, she worked really hard to get her revenge. For this goal, she uses every possible means. She abandoned a trusted colleague to her death. She manipulated EMP's son in order to kill his dad, but the assassination attempt failed. Is it understandable? Of course. Look, I would like to say I'm a principled guy, but would I maintain those principles if everything I cared about was destroyed? I don't know. You understand her position, but this need for revenge has turned her into a monster, destroying lives in pursuit of her goal. In a way, she parallels Batman in terms of anger towards crime. But this is where they differ. While Vasquez uses her anger to destroy criminals, Batman uses it to try and save everybody, including criminals. I'm telling you guys, this is a 10 out of 10. The story is simple but well made, the characters are heartfelt, the fights are entertaining, and the art is beautiful. I honestly have no complaints and would recommend that story. My first impression of Batman comics is rather positive. While I do think they have some issues, I can confidently say that the high expectations set on him are justified, and I can't wait to read more.